From the city of brotherly love, this is Shark Bite Biz with David Strausser.
You just arrived to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz. I'm your rock star wannabe host, David Strausser. This is your place to learn how to grow a business during complete global chaos. Today, it's all about sales. First, though, we got to do some housekeeping. Hey, congrats to my Philadelphia Phillies for going to the National League Championship Series for the first time since 2010, I think, the last time they were in the World Series. Well, here we go. 2009. I have it on my jersey. We lost that year, but we did win in 2008, which was actually the first time my whole life that Philadelphia has won a championship. So very, very excited that, Cinderella story, I think they're calling it on Major League Baseball right now. And pretty excited, but not as excited as I am for the Eagles and the Cowboys playing tonight, Sunday night. Now, yes, this episode airs Monday, but I record my intros, my outros Sunday right before they air, so that way it's fresh and current to what's happening at the time of the airing of the podcast episode. And tonight, I mean, you got Eagles, Cowboys. Eagles are undefeated, the only undefeated team in the NFL. Oh, it's going to be a great game. So I'm telling you right now, it feels amazing. Philadelphia is the center of the sports universe, and I hope it stays that way for at least the next couple months. If not for the next year, but at least for the next couple months, that would be awesome. Lastly, I need to give a shout out. We are going to be doing Shark Bite Biz Live. Yes, our live stream show with my fabulous, data-driven co-host Odetta Pine from G7 Tech Services. We're going to be doing it October 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm telling you what, it's going to be a blast. We're going to be talking about Elon Musk, Twitter. We'll be talking about the burnt hair perfume that he's out there selling. We'll be talking about cloud gaming, Google Stadia being shut off, Amazon Luna out there, GeForce Now, xCloud, all of that stuff. We're going to be talking about that, as well as a couple other topics. And I believe we got Matthew Sullivan, if memory serves me correct, as a special guest interview. Anyways, it's going to be an awesome time. The best hour to 90 minutes that you're going to spend learning about the best business and tech news of the day. But let's get back to today's show. We have a great discussion on Slate for today. It's talking about sales, biz dev, and really a great discussion. Look, I love discussions where people just don't agree with me. You would not believe how many guests come on this show and they're just like, yes, David, yes, David, yes, David. But they really don't agree with me. They're just biting their tongue because they don't want to make me look bad, But what people don't get is, it's my show, but I'm here to learn, you all are the real rock stars of the show. I want you to challenge me. I want you to push me on my beliefs or what I think, because that's the only way I can learn. Got a guess I did that, and I love it because, we kind of go back and forth a little bit on sales philosophy, biz dev philosophy, which, as you all know, that's my core background as well, too, in the tech world. So it's kind of fun to go back, and I think he's got a lot of valid points. It's one of those interviews that, I delayed airing it for a little bit because I really wanted to think about it and take in what we discussed before I aired this. And I think it's valid what he's saying. I think there's a lot of good points. Now, do I agree with everything? Not exactly, but I agree with it more than I don't agree with it, if it makes sense like that. So I'll leave it there. You've got to listen to the interview to actually hear what we discuss. But who do we have today? None other than Jeremy Miner. Jeremy Miner is the chairman of Seventh Level, a global sales training company that was ranked number 1,232 of the fastest growing companies in the United States by Inc. magazine's list of the top 5,000 companies in 2021. He is also a contributor for Inc. magazine and has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, and a host of other publications. The single most effective way to sell anything to anyone in 2021 is to be a problem finder and a problem solver, not a product pusher. For Jeremy Miner, the embodiment of this philosophy has made him one of the wealthiest sales professionals on the planet. So, hey, without further delay, it's my pleasure to bring you Mr. Sales Rockstar himself, Jeremy Miner.
Make the sale.
Jeremy, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
Hey, Shark Bait, I love it. Dave, thanks for having me on the show. I'm going to take all that you said before as a compliment. My kids always say I'm boring, so thanks very much.
My kids say I'm boring too, so don't worry about that. Maybe it's because I make them actually watch the podcast and give me likes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it. I'm gonna start doing that with my kids. You know.
That's why every now and then you'll see a comment on there from my daughter. Daddy, I love you, or Daddy, I like this episode. So.
Oh my God, it's awesome! I love that. That's a really good idea, actually. Well, hey, I'm happy.
My 19-year-old produces the show.
Really?
Yeah, my 19-year-old is our producer. So you should see how much the kid's grown, starting from no real professional experience with episodes 1, 2, and 3 to compared to the episode that you just watched. I mean, it was pretty decent quality.
So they've gotten better over time. Well, that's good.
He has gotten way better over time. So that's good to hear. So before we go on too much further, we have a tradition on the show. Every single episode, we ask the same exact question. I just ask it a different way every time. Don't know why, but basically in a nutshell, tell us who you are. What do you do for a living? How'd you get there? What makes Jeremy, Jeremy?
Well, I'll give you a brief overview. So I'm the chairman and founder of a sales training organization called Seventh Level. And we train pretty much every company all the way from Fortune 500, we even have a Fortune 100 company now, but primarily Fortune 500 companies all the way down to SMB, all the way down to individual salespeople that sell anything. And we train their sales teams really how to work with human behavior in certain questions they ask and their tonality and really their sales process that trigger the prospects they're talking to actually want to open up, want to engage, whereas most salespeople have been taught to trigger sales resistance and actually trigger most of their prospects to go into fight or flight mode, which is a whole nother subject we could talk about today as well. So that's kind of what we're known. That's kind of what we're known for sure.
I think a lot of people sell the wrong way. I'm not a big fan.
I possibly agree with you that for sure. Yeah.
You have to hear what my wrong way definition is.
Well, what's the wrong way definition? Let's hear.
Wrong way to me is totally a hard cut, high pressure. Think how they try to do it with car sales.
Well, it doesn't work anymore. I mean, that's what I would say below average salespeople would sell that way because most of your prospects in our day and age, we call this the information age we live in, are far more skeptical, are far more cautious about making the wrong buying decisions than they have ever been before. So there's Well, yeah, and the power of the internet, social media, they know they have many choices to choose the exact same product or service that you sell. So if you sound like everybody else sounds, okay, they just view you like they view all these other pushy salespeople that are continually trying to stuff their solution down their throat. They push you off to the side, they commoditize you, and it's pretty much over at hello. So you don't want to be in that camp because you're not going to do that well as a sales professional or as a business owner that's trying to scale your company if your salespeople are still using techniques from the dinosaur ages of selling. For sure, you're going to be in trouble.
Well, there's some techniques that I think COVID has put a little bit of a reset on because of how things have, I don't know. I guess it's kind of working again a little bit. And here's an example of this. A little bit of a dated book. I'm sure you probably saw The Little Red Book of Selling or Sales Bible, some old Jeffrey Gitomer stuff. I think that when you read some of that stuff, if you take some of those opinions and techniques, but you apply it to a modern sense of how things are done today, that some of those core principles still still stand strong right now. What do you think about that?
I read a lot of books. So I've read about 1,400 books on persuasion, sales, and influence for the past 22 years. So I read about 5 books a month times 12 months a year. Typically read about 3 books a month and listen to 2 on audio. So about 5 books a month.
Okay. I was about to ask that if you do audio, because I do a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, I do. I like to read though too. So 5 books a month times 12 months a year, past 22 years, 1,400 some books. So I've pretty much seen everything. I'm okay with that type of methodology. I just know that it's only going to get companies and salespeople to a certain level because you're still triggering sales resistance by being overly assumptive, especially early on in a conversation. One thing, my background in college is behavioral science and human psychology, right? Which is really the study of the brain and why a human being makes a decision to do one thing or the other. And a lot of behavioral science, it focuses on really kind of what goes on in the brain that triggers our subconscious and eventually our conscious to go into what's called fight or flight mode. Now, everybody in sales and business has heard of fight or flight mode, but how many people actually know what triggers it, what causes it? If you're a sales professional or business owner and your salespeople don't understand what's triggering a prospect to try to get rid of them, then you're in deep trouble in our day and age. All right. So typically I just kind of give a little lecture here for the next 30 seconds. So within about 7 to 12 seconds, in any sales interaction you were in, okay, it doesn't matter if it's, on a doorstep, doesn't matter if it's on the phone and a cold call, doesn't matter if it's on Zoom. Let's say you have an inbound lead, doesn't matter if you're in a boardroom meeting, talking to a bunch of decision makers or a home with the prospect. Your prospects subconsciously, and we can't even help it as a human being, just the way we're wired, is picking up your verbal and nonverbal cues based on your tonality and what you are saying and or asking that triggers their brain to react. This is scary. React in one of 2 ways, okay? If we come across pretty much assumptive in the beginning, because there's no trust there yet. So if we come across assumptive, if we come across needy, if we come across attached, does everybody know what that means? Attached. Like people can feel the commission breath from a mile away. And we don't understand the right questions to ask. Your prospect goes into what's called fight or flight mode. Now there's 2 reactions. Fight mode is where they're like, hey, I'm not interested. Hey, I'm not interested. Click. Like they are like, that's fight mode. Okay. Like they're trying to smash you real quick. That's usually an A-type personality. Hey, just tell me what the price is and I'll tell you if I'm interested. That's what you're triggering. Okay. Now, if it's flight mode, it's typically more of a passive personality. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. You know what? I'm really busy right now though, David. Tell you what, can you call me back tonight at 9:45? Oh yeah, I'll call you back at 9:45. You call and then magically they never answer and they just ghost you from her. That's triggering flight mode. Okay. Now, once you learn what we call NEPQ, now that stands for neuro emotional persuasion questioning, and you learn how to come across more neutral in the conversation, especially in the beginning. Okay. When I say neutral, I mean more unbiased. Like I'm not quite sure we can help you. Like you don't know enough about what's going on to even know, right? Okay. You come across more calm. I call that collective confidence. And you come across, especially, this is the key word, detached. So you come across detached, okay? And you understand the right questions asked. You understand the right tonality and the verbal pausing and where to do that. It triggers their brain, to become curious enough where they actually want to engage. They want to open up because they feel that you might have something important for them. They don't know what it is yet, but there's a different feeling they get in their brain, okay? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about using techniques that work with human behavior to get the prospect to pull you in rather than you trying to steamroll over them, which we all know doesn't really work that well. Let's just be honest.
It doesn't. And that's one of the biggest things I tell my sales team, like you've got to push, but you have to push the right way. And usually the way that we end up pushing is, you get past the initial sales call, just feeling them out. We're seeing if they're a fit, they're seeing if we're a fit. And what we're doing is then we're kind of creating a timeline based upon the information that they're giving us. So, we do assume that we can do the pain points, that we can solve that. But if we can't solve the pain points, then it's pretty much, we're not going to move forward, because then we can't do it. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a bit, yeah. So I want to explain this someday, but I think that's a valid point with what you said there. There's a massive difference in understanding how to create, from your questioning ability, how to create so much internal tension in the prospect's being and their mind that they feel massive urgency that they need to change their situation. That is completely different than putting external sales pressure on them to try to manipulate them and push them forward. That is a massive difference.
That's exactly, I guess, like how you put it. That's exactly like how I try to teach my sales team to do it, because then you're creating, okay, well, first off, we're not creating the urgency because they have the urgency. That's why we're talking to them in the first place. What we're helping them do is realize it, and that we are the solution to their challenges.
Well, you're helping them relive their pain, right? So what you're doing is you're getting them. Okay, so what you're doing, this is really all selling is change, right? I was just at a keynote last week with a group of about 6,000 insurance agents in Denver. All selling is change, okay? Now, here's your problem. Human beings do not like change, even though we say we do. Okay, so think about that for a second. All selling is change. All selling is change, right? Because they're just changing to something different. So they're either wanting something better or they're moving away from pain. That's what selling is, right? It's usually a combination of both. But human beings don't like change. Now, why do we not like change? Because for the most part, it makes us feel very uncomfortable and unsettled, especially when that's initiated by some pushy salesperson who's trying to push, their solution down our throat. Okay. So human behavior repeatedly shows that we value something that is more consistent and something that is more familiar over something that is new and foreign to us, even if we don't like it that much. And I always talk about that. Think about the battered spouse syndrome. We always wonder, well, why does she keep going back to that guy if he's verbally abusing her, or physically abusing? Do you know why it could be he or she. Do you know why that other spouse keeps going back? Because they're afraid of change. They're afraid of the unknown. That's why they do that. That is so, I'll jump in real quick because it is extremely valid. With what I do I call it my day job on that show because it's separate from what I do with the show. But with Vision 33, we sell ERP, and you get to be talking, micro sales at 25 grand, but typically somewhere 150 to 500, 600,000 is probably our average deal size right now. And with that, you have some people that at this point, they've been working at the company for 25, 30, 40, even 40 years plus at this point, and they've been using the same software since like the 80s. Okay. And while the owner or the executive, or maybe now it's the owner's kid who's going to be taking over, like, hey, look, it worked good, but we're not going to be able to keep growing with this solution. We need a new solution for growth. And that's where he sold. But you have everybody else under them, like, no, don't buy it. Like, I like my green screen. I don't want to change the windows. You got influence. That owner might be the ultimate decision maker. This is a whole new set we're talking about now. However, if you're in a more of a B2B complex sell environment, which you just described there, there's not like one decision maker. Even if that person is the only one that makes the ultimate decision, there are other influencers that could influence that individual to make a decision one way or the other. It could be you're talking about software. It could be the head of IT that's like, they don't want to change because they feel like.
A lot of times it's like the COO, for example, operations. It could be financial, CFO.
It could be. Maybe they don't want to change because maybe they feel like they don't want to take the time to train people on how to use it. They feel like it could take too much time to ramp it. They feel like, just whatever.
That's an extremely valid point, like the time to ramp it, because you have to remember, And implementation, especially once you start talking about software services and stuff like that, it's a shared implementation. So even though you hired us to implement it, guess what? I don't know if your data is right or correct. You guys have to kind of validate that and validate that these processes that we're implementing work for you. So it is a shared implementation. So that means that during the course of implementation, they're not working 2 jobs, but they're working 1.5 jobs because they still have to survive as a company while they're undergoing this implementation.
Well, and that's why as a sales professional, you have to understand you're not just really speaking to the decision maker or makers. You need to also be able to speak to people who can't make the decision, but can definitely influence that decision maker.
I call that group, I mean, you have your champion, obviously, which would be like the key individual that's like, yeah, you guys got to buy them. But then I call them the key stakeholders. How many of those people do we have on board? And if we don't have them on board, why don't we have them on board?
Well, you want to find out. Okay, but help me understand, Dana, like who would actually be involved in actually implementing this, just so I have a better understanding. See, I want to know, I'm not going to say who's involved in the decision-making process, not yet. I'm going to find out who's also involved in implementing it, who's involved in training it. Like, I know I have to get them on board as well. And then finally, I might say, instead of saying, well, who besides you is the decision maker? Because that's just cheesy and everybody asks that question. I want to open them up, and I might reword that and say, John, can you walk me through your company's, I guess, decision-making process when it comes to solving problems like this? Walk me through. Oh, well, I have to talk with this person over here, or I have to, and now I'm starting to get more of an overview of what really is going on in this organization. So it causes me, the salesperson, to have better control of that account. Whereas most salespeople just like present and like hope it works out. You don't want to take that hopium drug. It doesn't pay very well.
Yeah, the hopium, lay off the hopium. But what you explained is a perfect scenario. Like a lot of the greener, younger sales reps, you'll notice that sometimes they're selling to somebody and it's like, dude, you got the wrong person on the phone here. You need to be working not with the director of IT. They just sourced him out to go find 2 or 3 potential solutions. Okay. You need to be talking to the CFO. He's the one that's got to sign the check and sign the contracts. Whereas the older sales reps usually, I say usually because even me, I view myself as very good with sales processes, strategy, stuff like that. But every now and then you've got to do the dog and pony show, as far as you're going to have to go through a whole sales process to, like, say, a director of IT. And then once he's sold on your project, then you pretty much have to start from scratch. And then you get the executive team and the key stakeholders. Now, we try to limit that as much as possible, but there is always like 1 or 2 deals a year that we're stuck doing that for.
The average company in the United States of America, I'm not talking Fortune 500. I'm just saying the average size company in the United States of America has 6.7 decision makers / influencers that decide on every decision. 6.7. That's the average size company.
We have a kickoff call next week. They have, between my company and their company, we're close to about 80 people on the kickoff call. It's our second largest kickoff call ever with headcount.
Well, and you also got to realize, especially with what you're selling, let's say it's software, that person that's responsible for the software or whatever, they might feel threatened by your software. They might feel like, oh shit, this is going to expose what I'm not doing and I could lose my job. So we have to understand that anything we're selling, we have to understand the influencers and the decision makers and how they might not view it as, like, the CEO might view it as like, wow, this is great. This is going to save us money, or this is going to do whatever for us. But somebody in IT might view it as, oh crap, if I let this through, I'm going to lose my job.
That's one thing I stress during the sales cycle, because I'm not selling myself anymore these days. I manage the sales reps. They come to me, then they bring me in when they need the executive warm and fuzzies, like, hey, David, like, have that, executive talk, exact thing where I kind of give them the warm and fuzzies and bring them over the finish line. Like, they use me strategically.
The warm and the fuzzies, I like.
With our sales reps, I'd like to think that they do a pretty good job of getting the right people. And one of the things that we mention is, like, with software, because the risk is automation. And does that mean it won't have? No, it means you're not going to sit in front of your computer filling out those stupid spreadsheets that you told me 15 times that you hate. And instead, it's going to be automated, and it allows you to do something actually more productive for your company instead of doing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So I want to ask you, as far as hiring talent, hiring sales talent, because that is something that is very tricky for a lot of companies, ours included. I'll tell you, I look for two key goals when I'm hiring somebody. Okay. Number one, you have to know how to manage a sales cycle. Okay. And by manage a sales cycle, that means that, there's no one person selling. You need pre-sales. You need subject matter experts. You may need me. You may need my boss. Okay. You've got to figure out and own that sales cycle and figure out who you need and then coach them up and tell them, okay, David, say this, not that, because they're touchy on that. But we'll have Alex say that like this, and then we'll be good. And then that's kind of how I view managing the sales cycle. The second part of it is building the relationship, because you have to build the relationship. At the end of the day, all the softwares that we're competing against, whether it's us, Oracle, NetSuite, Microsoft, we all do the same thing, you know? The only difference is how do we do it? Price, stuff like that. And the sales rep, how the sales rep is able to sell the value and the benefits of working with our company is usually what will get the deal closed at the end. So those are the two key ingredients I look for. Obviously, there's things like tech experience or understanding of technology, stuff like that, add into it too. But the two main ingredients are those two things. What do you think?
Do you want me to share you with what we train companies to do? So it's very simple. When they're in an interview process, we simply ask them, how much money did you personally yourself spend in the last 12 months on learning advanced sales skills so you could sell more of your products and services? And if a salesperson comes back and says, oh, I bought a book for $20, or the company I work for brought in a sales trainer over a weekend, we pretty much will not hire that person, or we have trained the company not to hire that person. We want salespeople that look at their job as a profession, not something they're just doing because they can't do anything else. Okay, those are salespeople that will never perform. We want to ask them if they're like, oh, I spent $1,000 on this course. I bought 17 books in the last 12 months. My company brought in this trainer, and then, I attended a bunch of their live coaching and I paid for that. That is a person that is actually serious about advancing their profession. Salespeople that do not spend money on advanced skills are not serious about their profession. They're just going through the motions to get some type of base and maybe a little bit of commission. Another red flag we have is when a salesperson wants almost all of a base and less commissions. All that tells us in our mind is that this person doesn't really know how to sell, because no salesperson that sells a ton would ever want some huge base and then small commissions. Nobody would ever want that. In fact, when I was a sales professional in the 4 industries after my first job, which was a straight commission sales job, I realized the other 3 industries I got into, I negotiated 0 salary and 100% commission at a much higher rate. Because why would I ever want some freaking salary that's going to limit what I can make in commissions? So that tells your employer, wow, this person must really know how to sell. Okay. And I'm not saying you don't have to have some type of base. Some people can have that. But if a salesperson comes in, they're like, they want a really, really high base and low commissions, that is a massive red flag that they do not know how to sell. And they really have no intention of learning advanced skills to someone. So we always train companies with that, and it always works out.
That's good. That's good. I think we're in a little bit of a mixed bag here, because where we work, there's only one commission plan. They don't do one-offs for anybody, unfortunately. I guess that's the pleasures of being a 500 person company.
It just depends. I work for a pretty one of the largest companies in the United States. It depends on your sales ability and skill level if they're trying to recruit, right?
Yeah. And that's where we're kind of, all over the board. And in our industry, we see bases maybe as low as like 60 or 70. And, for a seasoned sales rep, maybe as high as 150. I guess if you go into the large enterprise space, that's probably where you're talking 200, 250. But all of those people, whether you're at a 70,000 base or 250 base, I mean, you should be expecting to double to triple that with on target earnings, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, I sold for a very large Fortune 1000 company in the debt relief service space, one of the four industries I sold in, and they wanted to give me like a $250,000 base, and I said no because they were recruiting me. Right, I'd get recruiting calls 100 times a week, and I negotiated a zero base, but a much higher commission rate. So I was getting, I think their average rep was making like 5% commissions. I negotiated like 8.75%. And I could get it because of how well I did in the industry I came from. Right now, I didn't want any salary because I'm like, oh, well, why would I want this small salary? I'll just go out and I'll make quadruple that with straight commission. So when you become a sales professional, you learn the right skills, you learn how to work with.
I think it depends the industry though. Okay. Not that you're not wrong. Cause I used to think the way that you think for many, many years. And then I got into the industry that I'm in now. And this is, again, ERP is kind of like a niche industry.
Yeah, we train a lot of companies in your industry.
I mean, you got to remember, a short sales cycle is 6 months. And then you might get it, and it might only be like a $50,000 deal. Or it could be a $5 million deal in 6 months. But I mean, we just closed a $15 million project that I've been personally working on for about 2.5 years. That it took us to close that deal. And that's where you have the base.
No, I understand. I'm not saying you can't have like a draw. You can't have a draw in the beginning for sure. I mean, like I said, we train a ton of people in your space. And whether they negotiate, I'm not saying you don't have to have a base, but typically, I mean, I came from the industry from my first job to second job, I was already making almost $1 million a year in commissions for 5 straight years going into this job. It's not like I was broke and I got to pay my mortgage the next month, right? So I think the first industry like gave you a draw the first couple months, but typically when you learn the right sales skills, when you learn how to work with human behavior, we've taken companies, let's say in your industry, medical device sales, where they were having a year-long sales cycle, and we were shortening that down to 3, 4, 5 months. It's because, when you're just blah, 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 and trying to build a relationship and taking them golfing and going out to dinner, well, guess what? All your competition is doing the exact same damn thing. There's nothing different than you, right? You're doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
That's a nice thing. In COVID, nobody was really doing that. So it was...
Sure, you couldn't do that. But what I'm trying to suggest here is it's not just like in our minds, building a relationship does not mean like, let's go out to dinner. Let's go. I mean, that's okay, but everybody else is doing that with them as well. That doesn't separate you. People buy in our day and age, people buy from companies and salespeople that they feel can get them the best result. Okay. You don't get a prospect to feel that you can get them the best result by just taking them out to lunch. Okay. That everybody else is doing that. You're no different than your competitors doing the same thing. Okay. There's a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People from 1936. We're talking about some of these old sales books. It was great. Hey, people buy from people they like. Yes. In the 1920s and 1930s and 1940s, they did. But people in our day and age, we're 100 years later almost. People buy from people they feel can get them the best result. Now, I'll show you this case and example. If they like you,
oftentimes, though, one can argue, oftentimes, though, that person is also someone that they do like as well, too.
Likability comes second. I'm just going off the data. Likability comes second to they feel you can. You love grandma, but you're not necessarily going to buy from grandma if you feel like some other unknown stranger is going to get you a better result. You're not going to do that. It's the same way with why do people buy from Amazon? Do they love Jeffrey Bezos? Why do they buy Amazon rather than just going down to the retail store? Their neighbor, they love their neighbor. I mean, they love John who owns the retail store down the block, but they buy from Amazon because they feel Amazon can get them a better result. So when we're still using techniques, like I love some of these books back here, but they're so outdated. I mean, Dale Carnegie's great, but in 1936, they didn't have people cold calling 70 times a day. They didn't have social media where you saw ads all the time every day selling you. They didn't have TV commercials trying to sell you all day. We are inundated with sales trying to sell us something all of the time. In the 1930s, that wasn't the case. Hell, when the phone came out, people answered every call. They didn't know who was calling. Completely different. So if we're still using techniques that might have worked 100 years ago and we're expecting them to work now. We're just beating our head against the wall, hoping it works out.
Yeah, that definitely has a lot of truth for it. And I'm thinking of the audience that watches this show, the demographic. A lot of them are 1, 2, 3, 5-person shops. Just trying to grow, whether they're lawyer, insurance agency, stuff like that, and they're thinking like, hey, how can I grow our business? And I think a lot of the stuff of what you're saying is absolutely just gold nugget after gold nugget for them.
We live in 2022. Stop reading books that have been around for 60, 70 years, or they're just repackaged in the same thing. You'd be really careful. One of the biggest things I ever learned as a salesperson when I had my first sales job and I was really struggling, the company gave us a script. They said, hey, read these books from the old sales gurus and, be excited, enthusiastic, and it's all going to work out. And I found out very quickly that wasn't the case at all. But one thing I learned very quickly, and this came from Tony Robbins. I love Tony. And he says most people fail for the simple reason they don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. They don't learn the right skills. Now, he goes on to say, everybody is taught skills. People who fail are the ones who are not taught the right ones. So as a sales professional or business owner, I want to make sure I'm learning skills that actually work with today's modern day buyer. I'm not learning from somebody that hasn't sold for 30 or 40 years to prospects that were completely different. We have to be careful of that. I think sometimes we don't think.
You think a lot of companies take some on the responsibility. Okay, so let's separate this out. Okay, you have the individual sales rep that we've been talking about a lot here too. And we've also talked about the company as well. I think the company also has some responsibility in order, manager, stuff like that, pushing the sales rep to go out there and grow.
Well, I think you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. I mean, there's a very large Fortune 100 company that we train. Okay. They're a search engine. They're the biggest search engine. If you want to look that up. Okay. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, you know what I mean. All right. So I'm not going to name names, but we trained 3 of their divisions. Okay. For quite a while, even before it was our first B2B client. Okay. And you'd be very surprised when we went in and they had us audit calls from these 3 divisions. It's a massive company, does, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, if not more, in sales. Okay. And really their salespeople were just product pushers, just talking about the services. Oh, I'm with, name of search engine, so everybody's going to know who I am and just trust us. But prospects don't buy because of that. Okay. They don't buy just because you have some big brand, right? They buy because as a sales professional, if you're able to help them see where they're at right now, we call that their current state or current situation compared to where they want to be. We call that their objective state. Okay. Now, what's the gap? The gap can only be determined by you, the salesperson, by your advanced questioning skills that actually get the prospect to go below the surface and find problems in their mind that they didn't even know they had when you first started talking to them. The bigger you're able to get them to see that gap, that's not by telling them what their problems are, because that's going to go in one ear out the other. You're biased. You're the salesperson. Your questions allow them to feel those problems, okay? And when they start to feel what those problems are doing to them, even personally, that builds such a massive gap and creates, like we said, internal tension where they feel like they have to move away from that pain. You're the only salesperson that's ever got them to feel that internal tension. And so they're obviously far more willing to buy from you because they feel like you're the only person that understands their unique situation. And because you do, you're going to get them the results they want and they will gladly pay you.
We call that peeling back the layers of the onion, basically. And we do that during our discovery calls, for example. And then we get through 3 major pain points, but just from the conversation that we're having, and we try to have multiple different people so we get different perspectives from the different people, like you're talking about those different tensions, so we can get different things. So even though they're not listed as the 3 key points, we've also heard this, and that. And then when we go out and do our demonstration, okay, this is how, SAP Business One is going to fit the needs of your business. Then it's like, holy cow, like we didn't even think about this. And you guys just like totally solve that problem. You're creating that spark there.
Yeah, what you're doing is a concept called problem finding. Okay, so every book back here on this bookshelf will say you have to be a problem solver, but problem solving really comes after they purchase. Like if they don't purchase, you can't really solve their problems. That's a concept I never understood in the beginning. Like, oh, you got to be a great problem solver. Yes. Once they buy, if I sell a life insurance policy, I can't really solve their problem until they purchase it, right? Like if I'm selling software like you are, I can't really solve their problem until it's installed doing what it says it can do. So in our day and age, if you want to make a lot of sales, you have to be really, really good at problem finding. And that's helping them find problems that they didn't realize they had, because most prospects don't realize what problems they have.
The bells go off in their head, like ding, 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 ding.
When you're able to do that, they view you as more of the expert, right? The trusted authority. Whereas all your competitors, they're just viewing them as just salespeople trying to stuff their solution down their throat, and they commoditize them. That's the difference.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, this is, where we're at the state of the ERP business. It's very cutthroat. It's very, very competitive.
You know how many industries tell me that?
How many? Every single one.
Pretty much every industry. Our industry is so cutthroat. It's so competitive. I'm like, we train 158 industries. I think I've heard that from every industry.
But I think, so here's something we've asked a couple sales experts and biz dev experts that have been on the show is sales ability. Is it natural? Is it taught? Is it a combo of the both? What's your opinion on that?
That's the easiest thing to answer. Sales is an acquired skill. No one is born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills. No one is born out of their mother's womb with advanced tonality skills. No one is born out of your mother's womb with advanced objection prevention skills. Those are acquired and learned skills. It is a myth when people say, oh, he's a natural born salesperson, he has the gift of the gab. Gift of the gab people are average salespeople at best in our day and age, right? People don't just sit there and let you talk down to them and sell to them, right? That's what like sucky salespeople do in our day and age. The best salespeople are the best at problem finding and then problem solving. Those salespeople make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in commissions, if not more. No one is born. That's like saying a golfer is born out of their mother's womb with like knowing the exact mechanics and techniques of a swing. Nobody knows that. Those are acquired skills. Good Lord. I can't even believe people are still asking that question in 2022. It's crazy.
No, it comes up all the time as far as being asked, and people wanted to talk about that. But, it's funny because I got an email from someone out there hunting for opportunities. And it was like, hey, what do you all use as your accounting software? It was like the worst cold email I think I've ever gotten, especially for accounting software. I sell accounting software. I would be ashamed to send an email like this. And it was so bad. I felt bad for him. I did respond, and I just said, please do research in the company you're contacting first.
We get 100 emails a day trying to sell us anything. They're like 7 paragraphs. And after about one sentence, I just go to the next email.
Yeah. But I mean, how many people were trying to sell you sales coaching, and that's what you do? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You get that every once in a while for sure.
That's what I got yesterday.
Or they're like, hey, I saw you doing this. Like, I really want to build out your Instagram. I'm like, dude, our Instagram, we get 15,000 new followers a month. Like, you're going to build it out? Like, we have a whole social media team that builds it out. Are you even on my Instagram, dude? What are you talking about?
So we talked about 2022 and where sales are at today. How do you think sales will evolve in the future? How will sales be 5-10 years down the road? What's your long-term view of the sales industry?
Evolved in what way? That's a very big question.
I think it's an open question, as far as technology that's available for us, both ways, between what sales reps are able to use to help customers visualize their purchase.
I think there's going to be, as far as technology, I think sales somehow are going to be involved in this new metaverse. I don't know how, but we as a company will evolve in that as well. I think sales will become even more virtual. because I think companies realize that during the pandemic, like insurance companies that thought they could only sell to people in their homes, or car dealerships. Like we have a huge car dealership in Canada. It's the biggest used car dealership up there, called 401 Auto, and they brought us on about 2 months before COVID, and Canada was like one of the most strictest countries as far as lockdowns. So like you literally could not go into a retail store like a car dealership for like a year and a half to buy a car. So what's a car dealership supposed to do, right? So they're freaking out. So we're like, okay, put your salespeople at home. You've got these lead generation companies. People still want cars, right? It's not like they're not driving in a pandemic. You're still going to sell cars. And they got on the phones and started making sales and actually met people at the car dealership to go. Their sales more than tripled just because they were speaking to more people. Before, they were just waiting on people to come into the retail store. Now they were calling tons of people every week. Okay, that's just one example. Insurance companies, you train a lot of insurance companies as well, and they freaked out. What are we going to do? Our salespeople can only sell in the homes. Well, think about homes. You got to drive out here to this area 30 miles away. They're not there. Then you drive over here 15 minutes. You have an hour thing. You're doing a thing. You make the sale. Then you got to drive across town another 35 miles. They're not there. Then you drive over here 15 miles. And there's your day. You saw 2 or 4 people. Now with lead generation and leads coming in, now you're on Zoom and you're able to talk to about 10 to 14 prospects a day just on Zoom. And we had insurance companies where their sales went up 300-400%. So now they're like, we are never going back to that old model of driving all over the cities. We can do it just as well, way better, and see way more people here on Zoom. So I think that's only going to expand.
When I was in sales, we, it was more, I guess you can call it old school now, because everybody had the thinking, oh, no one's going to give you a $500,000 check, back in 2015 or 2016 after a Skype for business call. You know what I mean? And that's how, because we're in an old school industry too, being ERP. So that's what the thinking was. And then once we were pushed to do all our sales cycles virtually, yeah, there's a little bit of learning curve, especially for the people that have been there in the business longer, as far as, hey, turn your cameras on, let them see you.
Well, the point is, like, companies are used to making buying decisions. Yeah, so that's just going to expand. So as they come out with this metaverse, whatever that's going to look like, you're going to see like boardroom meetings in the metaverse. I guarantee within 10 years, 5 to 10 years, sure. So,
I mean, Zuckerberg, I believe, was just saying that on Joe Rogan the other day.
You'll have boardroom meetings. You will have boardroom meetings with boards and investors, whoever you're talking to, where you feel like you're actually in the room with them. And that'll just all be virtual.
Well, he was saying it's going to be, he was saying, because I just listened to this earlier today, he was saying that it's going to be even hybrid, to where you're going to have the hologram of a person next to you, for example. And he was using like a card game, but he's like, that could be a corporate boardroom as well too, Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I think that, as far as you're asking me, like how selling is going to change technology wise, I believe that companies that really buy into that, you have a lot of people like, oh, like these old people. I always, when I see friends on Facebook, like, post like pictures from high school, and you remember back in the old days all the time, I'm like, man, you're just always focused on the past. Like, you got to focus on the here and now, like focus on where you want to go and what's going on here. So you have to learn these new technologies, unless you're just planning on dying, unless you're planning on if you can't change with technology, you're just not, your company's going to go out of business pretty much for the most part. So you got to learn these things.
We'll end with one of my favorite mottos that I say here on the show, which is, you've always got to keep one eye on the present. You have to have your finger on the pulse of how things are now, but you've also got to keep another eye on the future as far as the direction of where things are going, and also for your goals, because your decisions and what you invest in or put your time in or learn today is going to affect where you're going to be at 2, 5, 10 years down the road. So that's something that I live by and I stress to my team. Anyways, Jeremy, this has been fun. Some really, really on fire discussion today, Ben. I totally loved it. Where can people find out more about you about your business, about your podcast, everything.
Well, we'll give them a little bit of a nibble here in the beginning, then kind of learn about it. So let's have them join one of our free Facebook groups. We'll send them to www.salesrevolution. So salesrevolution.pro. Salesrevolution.pro. I think one of my scheduling assistants sent you that. Got about 30-some thousand business owners and professional salespeople in that Facebook group. Right when they join, have them check their Facebook Messenger, and somebody on my team will say, hey, I'm from 7th Level. We'll message them over a free training called the NEPQ 101 mini course. Okay, it's broken down by our CEO, Matt Ryder, and he's going to break down what's called neuro-emotional persuasion questioning with some different examples of questions they can use for any industry they're in that will probably help them sell more. Just that. You go live in the Facebook group about 3 to 4 times a week with different trainings, different Q&As, all that kind of stuff. And we just give them little nibbles, little hors d'oeuvres. Okay. And if they ever want to learn more advanced training, they can always message us in there and they can reach out to us. That's about it.
That is awesome. And as everybody knows, we will have the link down below on the description. Thank you so much for coming on, Jeremy. This has been awesome. And looking forward to get you again on the future sometime, another year or 2 down the road, and kind of see how sales have changed in this post-pandemic era.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate you having me on. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. Cheers. Wow. Such an incredible chat with Jeremy, right? I mean, really, I love it when people push me back and they just don't say, yes, David, yes, David, yes, David. You're right, David. You're the dang expert, in the field you do. This is your bread and butter. I want you to tell me I'm wrong. And kudos to you, Jeremy, for calling me out. Now, we're going to agree to disagree, and I'll explain why in a moment. But I do think you have a very valid point, and it all depends on the situation that you're talking about. First, before I get into all that drama, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it sparked those warm and fuzzies, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. But if you really want to help us out, there's 2 ways you can do that, because Shark Bite Biz is the greatest kept secret in the world of small business. Please give us a super thanks. It's that little heart button with the $sign on YouTube. $1, $10, $50, whatever you can. Anything you can help support this show so that we can carry out our mission of the 3 Gs, which are personal growth, professional growth, and business growth. This show is all about growth, and we're trying to get our message out. And that brings us to a perfect segue for the second part of this, which is that we can only get out by people like you sharing the word of Shark Bite Biz. I would love to see nothing more than Jeremy Miner, Shark Bite Biz, 7th Level, out there trending on wherever you dwell on the interwebs, whether it's Facebook, Minds, Twitter, LinkedIn. Share this interview out. It's got some awesome sales, biz dev philosophy in it, some good discussion from 2 people that know their stuff in this world, but have some differing viewpoints and stuff like that. I mean, it's a great conversation, and I'd love to have Jeremy come back on and, dig even deeper sometime next season. Now let's get back to the real rock star of the show, Mr. Jeremy Miner. Amazing interview, like I said, and I love when I get pushed back on this because he does have a different belief set than me. That's one thing I had to really, truly understand when I became a general manager. And in my role with Vision 33, being a general manager also means that I'm the sales manager too. I manage a sales team. Not everybody's going to believe what I do. Not everybody will do what I do. I have to find their strengths, find their weaknesses, and help them achieve where they're strong, fix where they're weak, and get them to do that in their own style. What I would do and how I can do things, they can't do. And I've got to figure out how they could do it and how to make that work for them. And it's true. Everybody has their own way that does work. And I think that's kind of what Jeremy was kind of getting to it a little bit. Now, I am one that does believe that history repeats itself. I think things go in cycles, just like fashion trends. But when they come back, they have been adopted. They've been tweaked to a modern tune, okay? Like, we're not going to just bring back bell bottoms again in 2022 without a 2022 twist, if you get what I'm trying to say. And that's really my beliefs. Now, Jeremy, again, I could be wrong, but my understanding is Jeremy's belief is something for 20 years ago. No matter how much you tweak it or modernize it, it's just no good. It's not valid. You need a total new mentality and sales strategy going into it. And I can respect and I can understand that too. I mean, there are some things that I believe that can't go full circle, come back and be modernized. So I can respect that. And like I said, I do understand that point of view, but personally, I believe in trying to not reinvent the wheel, but to adopt the wheel with a modern tool set, the modern tool set that I actually have in front of me, to be able to make that wheel, work and make that circle complete when we're trying to close deals. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of what I believe. I don't know. I mean, it's really interesting, when you get into sales philosophy, because so many people believe so many different things, like, oh, this methodology or that methodology, and there's really no wrong answer. I mean, it's really an individual question of what works for you. How can you sell? Because everybody is different. Some people have natural ability in which they're able to mature that. Some people kind of have to learn a little bit more and need to get polished a little bit better. But I don't know. I mean, does that mean that I'm wrong? Is Jeremy wrong? I doubt it. I think we're both right in our own ways. And in most cases, again, I really think it comes out to what the solution is, the solution stack that you're selling, because I think we both agree that product selling is not the answer, but problem selling, fixing a problem, solution selling, that is the true answer. And how you achieve that is ultimately going to determine your level of success. Anyways, awesome stuff, Jeremy. Thank you for coming on, sharing about your mission. It was great talking with you. I love it when I get some pushback or people that believe a little bit differently than I do. It always makes for a spicier episode, and it's great stuff. Question of the day: can old sales methodologies be repurposed for 2022? Or are they DOA? Leave a comment down below on YouTube. Do you want to be in the show? Interviews at sharkbitebiz.com. Love to have any and every one of our listeners on out there on this show, on the live stream, whatever you want to do. Shoot us a message. We'll get you on. Please remember, if you're watching on YouTube, join the channel. You can become a baby shark for only $3 a month. And again, a final reminder, this Wednesday, October 19th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Odetta Pine, David Strausser, Shark Bite Biz Live will be covering some awesome topics. Cloud gaming, we'll be doing Twitter, Elon Musk, and we'll be covering the metaverse. I mean, we got a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be doing with special guest Matthew Sullivan in a live interview. So please join us. You can watch us live here on YouTube. Just look for the Shark Bite Biz Live playlist there, and I think you'll see the show listed, or if you look under videos, you might see it listed underneath upcoming episodes, something like that. You'll see it there. Anyways, you all know this by now, but I'll say it once again. I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz, and we'll see you all next episode. Go Phillies, go Eagles, remain undefeated, and, Philly, center of the sports world. Let's keep it rolling. See y'all later. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.